Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome, selamat datang to the first intellectual discourse series organized by Faculty of Education, UiTM Puncak Alam. On behalf of the faculty, I would like to welcome our distinguished speaker, Mr. Adam Brimo from Open Learning Worldwide. Indeed, it is an honor to have you here today. Thank you. Welcome and selamat datang to the Dean of Education Faculty, Professor Dr. Haji Muhammad Mustafa, Muhammad Ghazali, Deans from other faculties in UiTM, Deputy Deans, Professors and Lecturers, students of UiTM from Faculty of Education and Faculty Music, and to our special guest, a group of teachers from SMK Rantau Panjang Terengganu. Ladies and gentlemen, lecturers and students, before we begin the session, I would like to call Brother Muhammad Ahmad Shahmi to recite the dua. Please welcome.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma ighfir lana dhunubana wal ikhwanina allazina sabakuna bil iman. ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Education develops and transforms to suit the needs, demands, and the nature of the society. Not only the content matters, however, the method should be adjusted and enriched to suit the education needs. Today, we are so very lucky and fortunate to have Mr. Adam Brimo, the founder and CEO for Open Learning Worldwide, to share his view, perspective, and experience on the topic 21st Century Learners and 21st Century Teachers, Pedagogical Gap and Challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Mr. Adam Brimo.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Adam Brimo, and I'm the founder and CEO of OpenLearning.com. So it's wonderful to be here today with all of you. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to see everyone. And I know this is a big lecture hall, but I feel like we're quite close together, so that's good. Yeah. So I thought today there are a number of things that I'd love to share with you. Some of them are my journey with open learning, but mainly around what you can do and I guess the future of online education in general. So open learning started in about 2012, and it was started by myself, Associate Professor Richard Buckland from the University of New South Wales in Australia, and David Collian, my CTO. And we set out to start the company after Richard had put his lecture videos on YouTube, and he had about 3 million people around the world watch them. But although he had lots of people watching, he wasn't sure if they were actually learning anything. Because when you watch a video, you might be entertained, you might do some things, you might follow along. But Richard's courses were all about community. They were all about working on projects and activities together. And you couldn't really do that on YouTube. And he looked around at all the platforms available, and he saw that there was he couldn't find one that worked for him. So we got together, and we started the company. And so you can see us over there. So David and I and Richard actually have quite a long history together. When I was at university, very similar to all of you, not long ago, I was very lucky to have Richard as my computer science lecturer in first year university. And is anyone here doing engineering or science or science? Okay. Education as well? Cool. Okay, wonderful. So I studied software engineering and arts myself. In arts, I studied politics and international relations. So I was always in multiple faculties. Oh, okay. That's nice. Thank you. It works? Oh, good, good. Wonderful. Okay, now I can walk around. Cool. Okay, so I'd always been interested in computing, but I tried teaching myself how to program when I was much younger. Like when I was, probably 12 or 13 years old, I thought, I'd like to learn more about the internet. I'd like to program something. So I went to the bookshop and I looked for computing books. And I saw these books. I saw Java, C, C++. And I was actually very confused because I saw all these books about C and C++, and I thought, who wants to be a C student? Why do you want to get C? So I thought, I didn't really understand it. So I tried teaching myself for some time, but I was really struggling with it, I guess. When you try and teach yourself something, sometimes you're not motivated to do it, or maybe you're motivated, but you don't know where to start. There's so many things out there. Where do you go? What do you look at? So when I went to university, I was very lucky to have Richard as my computer science lecturer. And when I first went to university, I couldn't imagine myself being an engineer. Like, I'd always wanted to be one. I wanted to build software. But I couldn't understand, how do you make that jump? How do you go from being someone who's 18, just going to university, to being someone who's like 23 and like a successful engineer, or like getting a job in engineering, and being trusted to actually, build things that society relies on. So in my mind, I always struggled making that jump. So I was quite lucky to have Richard as a professor. And in his course, we started off not just trying to learn how to program, how to write software. We actually started off trying to learn how to solve problems. And we learned about the different challenges, how you solve those, different ways of solving them. And I realized that Richard's course was actually about problem solving, thinking. And what Richard was doing in his courses was having lots of action. And through that, we were actually learning, or actually were transforming the way we think. So we weren't thinking like just, a high school student. We were thinking like an engineer or a problem solver, a computer scientist. And it's actually that jump in thinking that is the hardest thing to achieve, but that's actually what makes the big difference. And once we made that jump, then all the programming languages and everything started making sense. Now, it wasn't a very easy road. Richard's courses have a lot of work involved. You normally do about 20 hours a week of work on his course, and then you struggle in the rest of your courses to keep up. So he's very, you enjoy it, but it's probably one of the hardest courses you'll ever do. And I remember one of his courses here, there was a final project in the course. And out of about 300 students, only one person finished the project. And I wasn't even sure if Richard had finished it himself. So you never know. But it was an incredible learning experience. And even if you didn't succeed in the project, complete it, you learned so much. So Richard was great at doing that. He's still great at doing that. And that's around the time I met David as well. So David and I go back for a long time. We met in the first year of university. We were both student representatives. And we ended up doing a few things together. One is we did artificial intelligence together, and we programmed robots to play soccer. So has anyone seen the little two-legged robots? They're like that tall, right? Yeah. And they always fall over, don't they? Yeah. They're not very reliable. So when we did this thing called RoboCup, and in RoboCup, the university has a set of these robots, and you have to program the robot to play soccer against other robots. Now, you're not controlling the robot, it's all autonomous. So it's very challenging. So when we first did it, that was about 2008, and it was the first time they used the little two-legged robots. So they were always falling down all over the place. I remember one time they fell down, and the head rolled off. And I was very scared I broke the robot. But David and I got to know each other really well when we did that. And I was also very lucky at UNSW because they did this wonderful thing where if you did well in a course, then you could actually go back and be a teaching assistant and a tutor for that course the next time it runs. So because of that, after first year of university, I was able to become a tutor and teach courses for about 4 years because I spent 5 years there. So that was a wonderful experience to me, and that was probably my first experience really trying to teach a class and teach students. Some courses I did better than others. I actually taught a class I never took myself, which was very challenging and confusing. So anyway, we got together. Brooke joined us as our Chief Learning Officer. Her background is in childhood education, all the way from primary school, high school, through to university. So she's really fantastic. So we started about 3.5 years ago. We actually started longer than that, but we launched about 3.5 years ago. And when we first launched, it was very hard to get people to start using open learning. In a lot of places, particularly in education, you need a lot of credibility, you need a long track record, but when you have a new product out there, it's kind of hard to get people to use it. So what we did was we put the platform out there, and we let anyone around the world build courses on it. And they didn't need to talk to us, they could just go and design a course themselves. And that turned out to work quite well. So now today, we're based in Sydney, Australia. We have about 20 staff there, mostly engineers and instructional designers. We've established an office in KL as well with about 30 people. And we've got a couple other staff scattered around the world as well. So we've grown quite a bit. About 18 months ago, we probably only had about 6 staff. So it tells you how quickly it's grown. And I expect we'll have quite a few more pretty soon. So that's kind of my compressed journey. And obviously there are many challenges along the road to get there. But I might leave those for another talk. So this is one of the big reasons why we started the platform as well. At the moment, only 6.7% of the world's population actually holds a college degree. And although there's all this talk of, big universities around the world, whether people can go to university, we think of even in Malaysia that probably about 30 or 40% of everyone ends up going to university as well. But around the world, not everyone's so lucky. And as much as university education features in everything we do, as much as a lot of people we know actually go to university, we're all actually living inside this little bubble. Because most of the world out there does not have the same opportunity that we do. They can't come here to a university. They don't have the resources. They don't have the facilities, the teachers, the other groups of students. And this is one of the big problems that I think can really be solved by technology, and particularly open learning. The other key part of that is that you don't always know who the best teachers are. And you don't know where they're going to come from. There are a lot of courses out there, a lot of learning platforms around the world. And some of them focus on trying to build courses from the most prestigious universities in the world. So like on Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, even some of open learning as well. There are a lot of big universities around the world, like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, all of these places. And what's interesting is those universities have great reputations, and they are very good at many things. But just because the university has a good reputation, usually based on research, doesn't mean the teaching is just as good. And our experience has been that there are fantastic teachers, fantastic educators all around the world. And they don't come from a particular country or university. They're just, passionate people who care about what they're doing, who want to learn more, who want to do a better job. And through open learning and through MOOCs, they have the opportunity to actually build a course for the rest of the world. And that's something that really motivates us, because there is a risk with technology that you always try and, build the best of one thing and give that one thing to everyone else. And there's a risk that could come from like a university, in the US or Australia or one of these places. But the reality is there are great teachers everywhere, and they all need the chance and the opportunity to build great courses. And only through MOOCs, on these massive online courses where anyone can join, can the students really judge for themselves. So when the students take the course, they can decide if it's really the best course around. So that really motivates us. And I think that really ties into the the goals of the Ministry of Higher Education, and particularly one of the key shifts, which is globalized online learning. And what this, I think, tells us is that Malaysia in particular has a huge opportunity ahead of it, in that there's a lot of passionate educators here. And previously, a lot of people might not have looked to Malaysia as a leader in higher education. But there are a lot of international students coming to Malaysia, and there are a lot of great teachers and educators. And through MOOCs, through these online courses, and through the globalization of online learning, people all around the world can join those courses. So today I've got some examples for you of courses run out of Malaysia that have attracted students and transformed people around the world. and which wouldn't have been possible just 5 years ago. So a lot of this is happening through the Malaysia MOOC initiative, which runs on open learning. So over the past 18 months, we've worked closely with all 20 public universities and provided the platform for you to take courses and for you to build courses as well. And anyone's actually able to go on and build a course, so if you're a student, you can actually do it as well. But one of the things that I wanted to go through is really the expectations of students and how that's actually been changing. So since I guess the internet's taken hold over the past 20 years, and really in the past 5 to 10 years, many things around the world have moved from sort of a one-to-many relationship to a many-to-many. And what that means is, traditionally, when you have a course, you're thinking about, the teacher teaching all of the students. But when a teacher tries to teach every student, you have to worry about like a student-teacher ratio, and maybe one teacher can only teach 10 people or 15 people or up to 20 people, or maybe 5 people really well. Now, a lot of the innovation in technology and education has gone into trying to scale up this teacher, to try and help that teacher teach 500 people or 1,000 people. But if you take the same approach, if you build a course with the same pedagogy, you can never really get that one teacher to teach all those people. What will happen is you'll end up losing a lot of students along the way, and they won't have a great experience. So the only sustainable, scalable way is really the internet, where rather than one person trying to teach the world, the students of the world are teaching each other. And there are many ways that you can do that, but once you go down that route, then the teacher is not actually teaching all those students. The students are teaching each other. So you no longer worry about the teacher having to have all the information. The teacher is not the sort of font of all knowledge. They don't have to know everything. They really just have to create the experience, create the activities, and curate the community. Students, when they come into university, also have more expectations than they used to. So I think what's interesting is a lot of times we think that students, they want to be told what to do, or they want to learn a certain way. But really, the student is actually quite malleable. I mean, so there are a lot of students here. So can you raise your hand if you're a student? Yeah, cool. So when you came to university, you expected certain things, right? Did you think university would be similar to high school, or do you think it would be different? Different or same? Different? Same? Okay. And has it been different or the same? Different, yeah. So you expected it to be different, and you're glad it was different. Yeah. If it was the same, you would have been disappointed, I guess, right? Yeah. So yeah, actually, I looked forward to university for so long when I was at high school, because I thought it was a place where I could do anything I wanted in terms of learning and studying. And I think what's interesting with that is a lot of times we think about the way in which we design courses, and we think about, okay, what's the student used to? Like, how are they used to learning? But, I don't know. It seems like both you and I, although we went to different schools and we went to different universities, we both feel that the experience you get at university should be different, and if it's not different, you're disappointed. So there's a huge opportunity coming into university where the university can really decide how they want to teach students. And the students really, won't mind either way. You can actually take a lot of chances, you can try a lot of new things, and the students will be happy with it, as long as it's not the same as high school. So one of those expectations is the ability to do your courses on mobile and to learn through mobile. Now, I think what's interesting with MOOCs is that it's really kind of set the stage for these expectations. Now you can actually start taking a course from a university pretty much anywhere in the world, and you can do it through your mobile or through a really nice online experience. And then you get to university, and the experience might not be as good as that free course that you found online. And that's a big challenge for universities and for teachers, because effectively you're being compared to something that's free. And students are already expecting it, students might have already tried those courses, and now they're expecting university to be even better than that. So the expectation of a student coming in has changed. They expect it more to be online, more mobile. The other big change is that the quality of the courses is no longer a secret. So this is Prof. Karim from USM. And Prof. Karim has a wonderful education blog. And he's also a great lecturer, so you can always watch his lectures on YouTube as well. But Prof. Karim had this great post called MOOC and the Secret Garden. So previously, no one really knew how good a course was at a university. If Stanford or Harvard had terrible courses, none of us would really know. We just assume it was good. Yeah, and yes, it's a good quote from Bill Gates there. So now, through the MOOC, the whole world can look into the classroom. It's no longer a secret. If the teacher is actually trying to teach something and it's actually incorrect, everyone knows, and people will be very quick to jump on it. At the same time, students can go anywhere and they can sample courses from different universities. And you can think, okay, well, maybe this university is good in engineering, this one's good in the arts, this one's good in literature. And you can go around and find that, what you think are the best courses for you from different places. And what this has done is it's put a lot of, I think, a lot of pressure and also created a sense of competition. In that now, universities are competing based on the quality of their courses rather than on their reputation or their prestige or their research. Because normally, in the past, universities have competed heavily on research and publications and papers. And those matter for rankings. But now the rankings of universities based on research are important, but so is the quality of the teaching. And the quality of the teaching is now visible. So when you put a course out there, it can be a reflection of the university, and it can show how great the learning experience is for the students, or it could show that maybe it's not that good. But interestingly, the biggest risk here is not for, most of us in our universities. The biggest risk is actually for these top 50 or top 100 universities in the world, where we have really high expectations of the quality of their teaching over the years. But now through MOOCs, we can actually look inside and see, actually, some of them aren't very good. And I think that presents a huge opportunity for all of us, because you can build a better course than someone at Harvard and put it online and get better outcomes for the students. Whereas Harvard, it's hard for them to do better than their reputation. Okay, so what does this look like in terms of how you build activities? So there's a learning framework that I'd say we've developed, but we've kind of we've put it together after many different things that we've read. So this learning framework kind of informs the way in which courses are designed on open learning and the way in which open learning itself is built. Now, you can think of it roughly following like Bloom's taxonomy in terms of the effectiveness of each level. So down the bottom, we have sleepy. So we consider those videos and readings. Has anyone fallen asleep while watching a video? Yeah. And reading? Yeah. Yeah, so we call those sleepy. When I was a student, I think I fell asleep in all of my lectures at least once. So, yeah, but probably not the best example there. So at the bottom we have what I would call traditional online learning. So that's passive and corrective things. So if you think of like videos and quizzes and all of that sort of stuff. Now that's kind of where online learning's been for a while. We call that e-learning 1.0. And then we have, in the middle, we have instructional things. Instructional things we think are like interactive ebooks, adaptive learning activities, animations, adaptive quizzes, those sort of things. Now, interestingly, so with those ones, we call them convergent because with those, you're trying to get everyone to know the exact same thing. Like, you're trying to get everyone to the exact same point and to think the same way about something. The top two, though, in the top two, we consider more either socially or individually constructive. So that's where you as a student or a teacher are building you're providing the activities so that students build their own knowledge and construct their own knowledge. So that they find ways that students can have different experiences, different personal experiences, but learn the same skills, even if they get there in a different way. Now, when you have that divergence, you have something to talk about and something to share and something to reflect on. So students can actually then work together in teams. They can build things either online or in the real world. And they can learn a lot from each other or in groups. So there's a few interesting things about this. One is the amount of effort involved in building activities and courses in this style. In the bottom part, eLearning 1.0, you just upload all of your stuff. Whatever you've got, you put it online. And people come and download it, and that was nice because now you don't have to send them a book in the mail. So that was an improvement. In the middle, though, is interesting because there's a lot of work and investment that goes into the technology, the digital media, into a lot of those different areas to build these really fancy instructive experiences. And on the surface, they look very impressive. You know, when you see like a really good animation about something, and you know stuff's flying around on the screen. Like I saw one recently of a medical experiment, and you know it was like a human body or something, and it's like, wow, it looks so real, very scary. But you can build that sort of thing. So in the middle part, I'd say that's technology intensive. I'd say it's resource intensive and that it can be very expensive to do. But the outcomes the outcomes are better than the traditional things, but they're not as great. The top two, what's exciting about the top two is that they don't require a great deal of resources, and they don't require a great deal of technology. What they require is creativity. And thinking about what you're trying to get the student to understand, where you're trying to get the student to be, who you want the student to be, and then the types of activities that you can build to get there. Now, that's hard to do, but it's not hard in the sense that it's hard manual labor. It's hard like in terms of thinking critically and coming up with really great ideas for activities. So the top two, that's a thinking exercise. The middle one I think is just, you know, how much money can you throw at it? And then you'll get some really fancy animation. And the bottom one is, if you really can't be bothered, just upload what you've got. That's how I'd probably describe it. So in this new model, let me see what I've got here. Okay, so there's one part I'll throw in here, which is the role of the teacher. So I get asked this a lot, you know, where does the teacher sit? Is the teacher still needed? You know, can the teacher go on holiday and no one will care? The role of the teacher is a fewfold. One is as a facilitator of the course. Not as someone who goes around and tells people what to do, really someone who guides and mentors and assists, who, you know, sort of the guide by your side sort of thing. The other is what we call the experience designer. So with the course now, you're actually thinking about the entire learning experience up front. Previously, a lot of courses have been run, you know, if you're running a face-to-face course, and you know, you might be very busy, you might just show up to the lecture, show up to the class, you'll have some notes, you'll start talking, maybe you'll have some handouts or a textbook for the students. But you can kind of get away with that in a face-to-face class. Nobody knows, you know. Maybe you had a bad day, you weren't able to prepare something. But now that everyone can see your course, you actually have to think about the entire experience up front. You can't leave anything to chance because people all around the world are joining and they have certain expectations. So as the experience designer, you're actually thinking about holistically how the student goes through the course. You can almost think of the course as a story. Like a good story, you're kind of hooked on it, right? Like you can't put the book down. You know, you just want to keep reading no matter what else is going on in your life. You're like, you know, I've got to finish this book. Movies are like that too, right? Like, how often have you walked out halfway through a movie? Have you? Yes? No? Are there some really bad movies out now? They seem to keep getting worse, actually, the movies. Yeah. I think we're at Need for Speed 7 or 8 now. I can't understand what's going on. But, so you don't normally walk out, though. Like, and that's because they've been constructed, you know, as a story that grips you and captures your attention. You know, you want to stay. You want to find out what happens next. And a good course can be like that, too. A good course where the teacher has thought of the course designer has thought of the experience, They've thought about the different pathways a student could take, how to capture their interest in the first 5 minutes, and then keep them engaged in the course, get them working on different projects. All of those things can be done online, but you have to think about the entire experience up front. I have some long lists of text. I'm not sure why I include them, but they're very useful. But they're on our blog as well. So there's one that I'll go through now, which is how do you engage learners with technology and creativity? Now, okay, so I've done a lot of talking. I've got some examples now as well. But these are just some general things I thought I'd throw up here. And these are actually on our blog as well. So these are examples of sort of types of learning activities that will engage the community, will help students construct knowledge. So these are things like, we could say, discover and share. Discover and share is when the student goes out and finds something, either in their environment or online, and shares it back with the community. You can apply it to almost any course. It's very simple. But what's interesting is that just because the course is online doesn't mean everything has to happen online. You can actually have students go out and do things in the real world. Another example, so that pass it on and take a turn. So that means you might start something off, a student might start something, and then the next step of the process is left to another student. So it's almost like you're doing parts of a project together. There's also what we call reciprocal teaching, which is just peer-to-peer teaching. So it might be the case that students in the class take turns preparing lessons for the class, or trying to teach or explain a subject in their own way. Actually, I saw a really good example of that at the polytechnics, where the polytechnics, the public polytechnics ran a competition last year where students had to come up with their own sort of video of a lesson. So the students actually made their own videos and things. They created their own activities, and then students voted on which were the most engaging. Okay, so this is an example of a create and share activity. So this is an introductory activity. And when you first join a course, it's really important to get to know the people around your course immediately, or as quick as possible. Because in the real world, in the physical world, when you go into a lecture like this one, if you sit down next to someone and you don't introduce yourself, after a certain amount of time, it feels very awkward to introduce yourself to them, right? So it's like, let's say, the two of you are sitting next to each other. You look like you're friends. Are you friends? Okay, good. It's good both of you said yes. So if you were sitting next to each other in the lecture and you didn't say hello in the first, half an hour, and then every lecture you sat next to each other again but never talked to each other, at some point you'd feel a bit awkward about talking to the person. Yeah. I did that when I was at university, and I had a whole group of friends, and I didn't know their names because I never asked. So an online course experience is exactly like that. Like when you first come in, you've got like 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 people, and unless you get out there and you say, hey, I'm Jennifer. Well, I'm Adam, but it could be someone else. And you say something about yourself, you introduce yourself, you share something about why you're doing the course, your motivation, and then you share it with the community. So in this course, it's a design course, so people share a picture that they make or a collage of photos from where they're from. And then people can discuss that and like it and talk about it. And they share why they're taking the course. So now Sharon, we know something about Sharon. If I was from Northern Ireland, I might want to connect with her and chat to her about what she's doing. Here's someone else, Ran. Oh, no, Carol. This is Carol. She's living in the US and working in the higher ed industry and always wants to learn some new skills and knowledge. And it looks like she's probably in New York, judging from those taxis. Yeah, the yellow taxi. So right away in this course, it's a design course, but you're starting to get to know people who are taking the course, and you get the sense that, there are actually people all around the world in this course with me. You might find people you want to work with eventually, or you might just like their designs. Another example is crowd curation. So crowd curation is where you might work together to improve someone's solution to a particular problem. So Someone might post something up and you offer suggestions, different ways of doing it. In this course, Applying Lean Six Sigma, it's like a business process improvement course. So you go through this course and you learn how to improve different things. But when you first go into a course, you might think, I don't know too much. How can I do anything in this course? Like, do I do activities? I haven't learned anything yet. Well, what you can do is you can try and apply the same concept to something that is relevant to the student's life, that they know about, and that there's no right or wrong answer for. So in this activity, Map and Minimize Your Morning, you map out a process of your morning routine, what you do every time you wake up in the morning. And then you think about how you can improve that process, and you make a flow chart. So what you're doing is the student is going through the same thinking process for improving a process, but they're not given an irrelevant scenario. They're actually saying, hey, do it for your morning and share it. And it's also kind of interesting as well. Reading some of the examples was actually quite depressing. So this one, the alarm goes off at 5:10 a.m. and it's snoozed. I can relate to that. 5:20, it goes off again. This time you get up. I normally press snooze much longer than that. Then shower, but yeah, so they do all these things, and this is what it is now and what it could be. So they're thinking about it and sharing it with the community. This was another one as well. So then there's some suggestions and what you can do. So there's like lots of extra capacity in your day. I guess you can do a lot in the morning. This is a discover and share activity. So this is trying to find examples of the most efficient processes. So this is one example where they changed the tires on the race car in 5 seconds. That sounded really impressive. But that sounded impressive, but then a student found a better one. Well, I thought it was a better one because it involved making mochi, and I love eating mochi. So this was the fastest mochi maker in Japan. So students are actually trying to find great examples there. Other ones as well. This one seemed particularly deadly, scuba diving buddy breathing. So changing the oxygen tank for a scuba diver while they're underwater. I would not like to do that wrong. That is very frightening. I hope that's not the person who woke up at 5 in the morning. So this is a take a turn activity. So introductions via Carmen Sandiego. Does anyone know what Carmen Sandiego is? Was it ever popular? Yeah. Yeah? Oh, you got the CD-ROM. I used to have that on my Windows 3.1 box. Yeah. So Carmen Sandiego, for those of you who are too young to remember. Yeah, I don't know if it's still popular. Is it still popular? Yeah, no? Oh. Maybe. So Carmen Sandiego is this person who traveled all around the world. She did all sorts of adventures, solving sorts of problems and crimes and all these other crazy things. And there's always a slogan, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Where could she be? And, we can all be Carmen Sandiego, I guess. And in this introduction, you share something interesting about yourself. You share the type of course that you want to teach. This is a course on education. And you share some clues, 3 clues as to where in the world you live. And then people actually can ask follow-up questions and they can take guesses. So this one is, so I'm Samantha, I'm going to be teaching Shakespearean poetry because, yay, Shakespeare. So, and then, she's living in a partitioned country island. It's very rainy. The city is built like this. It's pretty cool. Where could it be? Is it Belfast? I don't know. I guess so. Here's another one. This person seems to live in Lord of the Rings. Oh, New Zealand. Yeah. I guess it's about the same thing. So there's lots of cool things like that. Okay, so another section is I have about making learning meaningful. So I guess a lot of it is quite meaningful. But there are also things you can do to really, make a big impact on students' lives and to really transform their thinking. And there are some examples of courses that have done it really well. This is one recently from Prof. Amin from UKM, actually. Does anyone know Prof. Amin? Yeah. Yeah, he's so cool, isn't he? Yeah. When I first met him, I thought, wow, this is a cool guy. I liked him. And he's got this great course, Rethinking Teaching, Redesigning Learning. And I think this is a fantastic example of what can happen when you really are passionate about what you do as an educator, and you try and share that with the world. And Prof. Amin is a perfect example of that. So he built this course, and the course talks a lot about the pedagogy, the activities you can design, how you become a facilitator or a guide rather than an instructor. And his course, he put it out there, and students from all around the world have joined. I think probably about 50 countries, 80 countries, lots of countries. I don't have the number. But there are 2,000 students, and these students are teachers from universities, schools, everywhere. And earlier this year, actually just a few weeks ago, Prof. Amin won an award for the best open educational resource for education. And it's from the Open Education Consortium. And he flew to Poland to collect the award. And he beat out everyone else around the world who built education MOOCs, including us at Open Learning. We've got an education MOOC too. But he won. And I think it's perfect that it shows what you can do, because most people never would have thought that just, he's putting a course out there, people are taking it, they're enjoying it, but what does it really mean? What impact is it having? And the impact is actually quite nicely articulated in the reflections in the course. This is a person, Michael Park. And Michael says, that's easier for me to read up there. This was the first MOOC I had ever taken. I wanted to understand more about teaching and learning in the 21st century, being only dimly aware what it might look like. This course moved me through my beliefs about education as instructive to education as constructive. As a consequence, it kept me wanting to understand more and better about the technologies available to enhance a person's learning. So this course had a big impact on this person. And it's very exciting because there were 2,000 people in this course. But those 2,000 people will go out and teach more people. And this person himself, Michael, might go out and teach thousands of people himself. So you can really see that when you build a course like this, people actually just share, how it's changed their life. And that's really the power of education. And that's what, that's one of the reasons why, we love doing this. So I have another case study as well. So this is Taylor's University. And Taylor's University has about 31,000, probably more now, students in their MOOCs. Now, Taylor's was the first university in Malaysia to launch a MOOC, and they've launched quite a few since. What's interesting about their MOOCs is that they've attracted a lot of attention internationally. And 80% of all of the people taking the MOOCs from Taylor's are from overseas. And these are MOOCs on things like business information modeling, entrepreneurship, baking a cake. Like there's a whole about 30 or so MOOCs. And people all around the world are taking them, and that has an interesting impact, which I think I've got a slide on. Yeah. So we asked students who completed the Global Entrepreneurship MOOC from Taylor's University if they were interested in coming to Taylor's. 57% said they never heard of Taylor's before, but would now consider a degree after completing the course. 85% of students wanted to know more about Taylor's. And if you ask those students, what's the best university in Malaysia? They'd tell you Taylor's. They might not be able to tell you another university in Malaysia, but they heard of Taylor's now, so it's #1 in their mind. And that's what you can do with MOOCs. You can actually brand the university and yourself and provide something really compelling to people all around the world. So as we look at making this meaningful, I think this is also a really great case study. So this is a collaboration between Taylor's University's School of Engineering and the Kuwait University in Kuwait. Now, in this course, students really get a global learning experience and a global entrepreneurship experience. Now, there are a lot of entrepreneurship courses out there in the world. There's courses from Stanford and MIT, from probably UNSW. I might even create my own entrepreneurship course. But what makes these ones special? Well, what makes them special is that rather than just talking about entrepreneurship, students go out and they start a project. So in this course, students were selecting a project that would solve 3 of the big grand challenges of engineering of the 21st century. The 3 that they selected were personalized education, solar power, and healthcare. So in this course, students would learn about the emotional skills required to be an entrepreneur, the technical skills, business skills, but really they learn that through experience building the project themselves and building a team. And the way they did that, they had modules and all of the sort of standard things, but these were interesting because they guided students through the process of forming a team, learning about different things, going through challenges, and creating a solution. So there were a lot of other partners involved as well. And one of the things they did really well was get corporate partners on board. So like General Electric was helping out, KFAS, the Kuwaiti Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences, the Global Dean's Council, Asia School of Business. A lot of organizations were really excited about this MOOC. So in the course, students started to form teams. So they come up with an idea, they put it out there, and they try and recruit people to join their team. Now, this is a page where students are trying to find members for their teams. I quite like it because you can see the role people take. So there's no teacher in this part, although there were great teachers in the course. Professor Mushtaq Al-Atabi from Taylor's University and a professor from Kuwait University ran the course. But you can see here, this person says, "Hi everyone, I'm available to help you campaign for new members. If you need a member to join you, just tell me and I'll help you find them." So here we actually have a matchmaker and a recruiter. Like, yeah, someone from the public is really helping out other people find students. And this person says, "Thank you. We urgently seek an expert in mobile app technology from Kuwait." Very specific. I think they found them too. So they created their teams. Some teams, here, health is wealth. So then I guess something relating to health. Solar-powered fridge, that could solve a few problems. Learn to earn, I guess they're going to make some money. Smart healthcare. So these are different groups students have created, and they're trying to get people to join them. But one of the things I really loved about the course, and this is actually in all of Professor Mushtaq's courses, and he has different names for it. One is he has what he calls My Emotions Today and Brain Rewiring. Now, in My Emotions Today, you list the five things that happen to you during the day, good or bad, but mostly good. So you think of the 5 good things that happen to you during the day. And even if you had a terrible day, you should be able to find 5 things. And what this does is it helps build a positive mindset. Because starting anything is hard. Being an entrepreneur is challenging. There's a lot of mental things you go through, Is it going to work? Should I really do it? Will I lose everything? Will I make a lot of money? You never know, really. So in this course, students list the 5 things they're thankful for. And other students reply and, they either support them or congratulate them or just say hello. And over time, this has a big impact on the students. No matter how bad their day is, they're getting supported by the community. So once the students formed the teams, they created the project, they built a prototype, they did the activities in the course. Then the top 17 teams were selected and actually flown to Kuwait for a 3-day workshop to present their innovations to the world. And also people in Kuwait, mainly people in Kuwait. So the top 17 teams were flown to Kuwait. That's a picture of Kuwait. I was very lucky to go with them. And they had this 3-day workshop, so you can see students here from all around the world working together and preparing their presentations. What was very exciting is that some of these teams had never met before in person. I know one team had someone from South Australia, Italy, South Africa, and the US. And I was very surprised. They all met together there in Kuwait for the first time. Here's another student presenting. And here's students displaying their projects. So this person built a virtual world, and they built a physical diorama to showcase the virtual world. I thought that was very creative. Another one here, this is a technology to clean solar panels with recycled water. So when a solar panel is dirty, that reduces its efficiency. So this is a solution the students built to try and solve that problem. And then there was a presentation as well. for the final pitch and everything. Now, actually, so the winning team was actually someone from Taylor's. Yeah. So even though they were involved, it was very fair, I assure you. So the winning person actually had a very innovative solution, which is that this healthcare grand challenge. Now, healthcare, we think of, okay, how do we create vaccines, how do we cure diseases, how do we get people better care, all these sort of things. His solution was interesting. The problem he tackled was people actually wait too long before calling the ambulance. And that waiting period is a big factor in whether someone will live or die. And that's particularly the case with car accidents. When you get into a car accident, there's a long amount of time, usually at least 8 or 10 minutes, after the accident and before you call the ambulance. And you might not be able to call the ambulance because, maybe you're incapacitated. Maybe, you can't find your phone is broken. Or you're in shock, you just can't call. So he built a device that plugs into the data port of a car. And when it senses an accident, it automatically calls the ambulance for you. And just that alone could reduce the number of deaths by 50% because the ambulance will know to come straight away. So I thought that was a very, very creative solution. And I'm sure there are other people working on it around the world, but they built that in this course here. Okay, so I think those are probably the main things for me. There's one final part that I'll go through, because I always get asked it a lot, and that's how do you actually assess students who are doing all of these very fun things. Now, there's always this idea, 10 minutes. Okay, thanks. So was that a test? No. So I call it the challenge of assessment. And when people see people, doing projects, doing all of these group activities, sharing things from the internet, sometimes they wonder, okay, how do you know if the students learned anything? They don't look like they're learning. They're having too much fun. So we've got a solution for that as well. And one of the key things is that as students are doing activities, a lot of these formative activities, they're creating things and sharing those. But all of these constructive activities produce an artifact or an evidence of the student doing something or learning. When you do a group project, you've produced something. Even if you're doing it in a team, you've done something either in a team or individually. When you're finding something online, you're sharing with a group. Even if you've just done something physically, you could reflect on that experience. And all of those things are, little artifacts of the students learning through the course. So what happens is each of these little activities, and you may have 50 or 100 in the course, are linked to a course learning outcome. You probably wouldn't have any in the course that weren't, but it's important to be mindful of that mapping. Because every time the student does something, every time you've designed an activity, you've put it there for a reason. Because as we were talking about before, your course is like a great story. There are a lot of things that happen along the way to make it successful. So you're capturing all of those. So students can obviously see all of their progress. They can see what they've done. And they can see if they've completed it, the kind of feedback they get, and all of that. But the way the assessment works is that all of the learning activities are mapped directly to course outcomes. And then what we see as reports are produced. And the report is like a snapshot in time of the student's attainment of those learning outcomes. And each of those reports has an assessment criteria. And that criteria could be, either it could be quite simple or it could be just seeing how well the student has done something. But once you do that mapping, then the assessment for the assessor becomes quite simple. They automatically see a page where all of the students' evidence is pulled in for each of those learning outcomes. And they can see the feedback from the community. They can click on them. They can see the comments and likes and all that sort of stuff. And they can tell straight away, has the student met this learning outcome? You can almost think of this like an auto-generated portfolio of all of the students' work throughout the course. So it's really using a portfolio approach, but automating the process so you don't have to think about it too much while you're actually building the course. And for us, that's the key. We don't want the assessment to interfere with the student's learning, because there's always this risk that if you design the course based around the assessment, then the assessment drives the student in the course. They think too much about assessment, they do things just for the purpose of assessment, and in many cases, that can be detrimental to the learning experience itself. So the idea is trying to find a way to make it really easy to assess while also keeping the efficacy and the quality of the learning experience. So that's generally how we do that part. Okay, so in general, I guess that's all from me. So I guess the biggest thing that, of all of those things I think is good to think about is really the purpose of technology in what we're doing. There are a lot of times when people think of online education, they think of it being, very new and different. We're changing the way we do things. And in many ways, that is correct. We are making a lot of changes. But the fundamental principles and concepts of building a course and creating a learning experience actually haven't changed. What you can do when you teach effectively in person, you're doing a whole host of things that you may or may not be aware of. You're seeing which students are more motivated than others, seeing which ones are falling asleep and trying to re-engage them. You're coming up with activities to meet the students' needs, or you're asking the student where they came from, what they do, to introduce themselves. You're doing all of these things either on purpose or just because you've kind of always done it. But when you move online, it's important not to lose that, but really to think about how you can actually create that great classroom environment that you always really wanted to have and that you really enjoy having, and creating that in an online course. And the pedagogy might be the same. The technology is a bit different, but hopefully the technology makes it easier to let the students teach each other, work together, and to meet new people all around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adam Bremer, for the wonderful session. Now we can see when it comes to education, the development, the transformation from conventional, traditional method to the more recent, modern and contemporary. And now we're moving towards e-learning, open learning. And now I would like to invite anyone who has any question or query regarding open learning, because we have 20 minutes before we end the session.
I've noticed people are always very hesitant to ask questions. Why is that? You're shy? Are you shy like everywhere you go, or just here? Just here, yeah. Yes, it could be cultural. I think, yeah. Oh, great. Hello.
I think this is more of a personal reflections upon all this open learning and e-learning kind of thing. One of the challenge for me after being in the teaching line for more than 2 decades is in terms of my own philosophy of teaching. To a certain extent, it is based on the Islamic perspective of, in Malay, what we call berguru. And the concept of berguru is that when you learn, you have to have a teacher that is there, that is available, accessible, that you can discuss, you can ask questions and so on. And it is more of a face-to-face interaction as well. So to a certain extent, that has some sort of constrained me in accessing to all this open learning and so on. So what is your view of those particular background and also of the different culture in relation to learning? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a really wonderful question. And I don't know I'm qualified to answer it, but I'll do my best. So I think in general, the technology and the medium is what you make of it. So you can probably find ways to use the style, the structure, the idea of open learning to enhance and expand the way you're doing things. So there could always be a teacher present, and that would be fantastic. The teacher's role could be the same or it could be different. But I think in many cases, the teacher, even when they're right next to you, helping you out, are performing a lot of those things. They're facilitating, they're guiding, they're mentoring. We call that teaching, but we can really, it can be called many things. So I think what the technology is letting you do is really think of that entire experience, all the things the teacher does, and actually solidify them with technology and make it a more repeatable process. So the teacher can then work more closely with students. They can find out what's bothering students, or maybe the teacher could make no changes at all, and it could just be there. But I think students coming into university today have been using all these sort of technologies and tools for much longer than maybe we even expect. Like every day I find out that people younger and younger are using Facebook and like Snapchat and these things. And I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe they should go out and play in the yard or something. But there's people are kind of experiencing different things earlier and earlier. So I guess my response would probably be that the technology isn't there to try and change you. It's there to enable you to do what you're doing, but for more people. And I wouldn't think of it as the teacher disappearing. In many ways, I think the teacher is more important than ever. Because now, the teacher is creating that entire experience. And if a teacher does that poorly, students will suffer regardless. So I'll do my best to, yeah. Yeah. Oh, you've got two. There we go.
Hi, I'm Ritaudin from the Faculty of Music. It's quite interesting to hear my colleague mentioning about the role of a teacher in our society. I think part of what she said is right. But I think most of the time, I think our students are too dependent of someone to guide them. That I've been teaching kids and I've been teaching university students, and I've had adult students too. And I think most of the time, the adult students are quite problematic in terms of working independently. They need us to guide them all the time. Compared to the youngsters, I mean, these youngsters, they are very, very, what we call it, too independent, I would say. But that's good for you guys. You say, but again, I think it's just the attitude of some of the learners. Yeah. And to add to that, UITM, we have been having what we call that the island platform, which is this what we call that the e-learning 1.0, right? You just dump everything on island, and without creativity from the teachers, and students are not able to gain, the ultimate learning from the platform. So I've been using other platforms, but of course it does not confirm to the UITM system, but I have to make do with whatever that I have. Yeah. And again, I could see that the attitude changes from too dependent learners into independent learners. Because you give them chance to explore, to share, to collaborate with each other. I think that would be one of the, not solution, but I think my suggestion. Yep.
I think that's a very wonderful point as well, in that I think it's the type of student that the university is looking to produce is one that is quite independent, and I think you actually see it in many parts of society. I saw it when I was teaching at university, when certain students would ask you a question on everything, like you need to really tell them what to do, whereas other students would try and work it out themselves, and you can really see the big difference in those two. And at university, as a tutor or a teacher, when you see that, you want to encourage them to try and do things on their own. But it becomes really evident once you get out into the workforce. Because I know, so when I was working previously to starting Open Learning, I mentored students. I was working at an investment bank, and we mentored students and things there. But now that we're hiring a lot of people, it becomes quite obvious when you're trying to hire someone, if they're the type of person who you can rely on to go and work out things and solve problems on their own. And that's the kind of person you generally want to hire. And that's what people are expecting. So being able to think freely, to solve problems on your own, to know where to get the knowledge, even if you're not getting it asking a teacher, you might be asking Google. Like, there's so many different ways people find things these days. So I think that's really, I think that's quite insightful, and particularly with the technology as well. I think what that shows is when you make it easy to do something, people will do that. So if you make it easy to collaborate, to communicate, to start projects, to share, people are more likely to do that as well. And when you create that environment that enables them to do that, they feel empowered. And when you feel like you're empowered or in control, then you're going to try, and do more and more.
Maybe one question from the student? Anyone? Because we have two questions from the lecturers.
Who's a student?
We have many students.
Oh, you're not gonna raise your hand and fall for that one, are you? Hello.
We have over there. Yes.
Okay. This is just something that somehow it pops up in my head. As an educational student, so we are expected to be a teacher, and that's how it will be. So I'm wondering if open learning, someday open learning become really developed and somehow it has become more and more open. It means that we can learn through Google, we can learn through the internet. So this is just something I wonder, how would be the credibility of the teachers? I mean, wouldn't people think, oh, we don't need teachers anymore? We have open learning, so how would it be to the schools, to the universities, to the teachers? So, yeah, thank you.
I think that's a very good question. Everyone wonders where the teacher is going to go. Are they still going to be here? Will there still be a university? And I think I'd say definitely yes. I think the teacher, the university is always there. They'll always need to be there. But the way in which they go about it might change a bit. So the teacher, no longer are we relying on the teacher to tell us everything we need to know. The teacher could be curating knowledge, finding different places where you learn different things, pulling the best resources from around the world, and constructing those into a great story or a learning experience for the student. And then as the student is going through the course, you're not instructing the student as much, but you're guiding and mentoring and motivating the student. You're making sure the student's happy, that the experience is good. So all of those things are critical. And if you think about all of the, you might think there's a lot of teachers in the world, what are they going to do? Well, I think the statistic early on that only 6.7% of the world has a college education, and you think that 6.7% is employing all of these teachers. Really, there's a huge opportunity for those teachers to reach even more people. So I think my view is the role of the teacher is more important than ever. And now the teacher is being relied on to design the learning experience and then make that experience available to the rest of the world. So all those courses on open learning came from passionate and dedicated teachers. So even as a student, you're welcome to build one of those for the world as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of the session. On behalf of the faculty, I would like to invite our Dean, Professor Mustafa, to give a token of appreciation to our speaker.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.